All right, I'm Laura Ingraham. This is Ingraham Angle from Washington Tonight. GOP sellouts. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, I can't tell you how many Republicans I've spoken to lately who are pretty disillusioned and demoralized. Election after election, they vote. Some of them volunteer, and they donate to a party that, when push comes to shove, seems to actually detest them. Now, on big issues like trade and foreign policy, budgets, Republican leadership seems far more comfortable cutting deals to satisfy Democrats than they are with working to satisfy their conservative base. Now, we saw this dynamic play out yesterday when 12 Republican senators, all the usual suspects, voted for the deceptively titled Respect for Marriage Act. While purporting to safeguard marital rights of same-sex couples, the law will actually end up gutting the religious liberty rights across the country. Social conservatives, of course, are insulted, yet they're not really surprised. And now, we just learned this week that Republicans are going to cave on yet another huge issue: spending. Now, on December 16th, the government will run out of money. It's convenient how the deadline always runs right up to Christmas vacation, when all the members are just desperate to get out of town. Well, before that deadline, Congress can do one of three things. First, it could simply pass nothing and shut the government down, and that would mean they would cease federal spending on all non-essential services. You'd still get your Social Security check, veterans would still get their benefits, etc. Now, we know they hate doing this because that move, while it is drastic, forces members to stay in town, figure it out, and be more accountable for the obscene amount of spending that it usually just rubber stamps. Second, and less drastic a solution for them would be to pass a temporary spending bill in the form of what's called a continuing resolution. This would freeze spending in place for 30 days or for some limited period of time. Now, the obvious benefit of this would be that Republicans would end up being in control of the House by the time the CR runs out, and thus Republicans would have much more say over the huge pots of money that are going to be spent, or not spent at all in some cases. The third option is what both Schumer and McConnell apparently prefer. And I'm talking about having one giant, or as my son would say, ginormous spending bill that would fund the entire government for the coming year. So no separate bills, in other words, for various departments. It would all be in one just giant bill. This gives Congress huge latitude to increase spending from 2022 levels, which means billions more for pet causes like climate change. Remember the hiring of those 87,000 IRS agents, and of course, never-ending money for Ukraine. Now, this concession by the master strategist Mitch McConnell puts Republicans in a box. With spending questions off the table, they'll lose most of the real leverage they had to advance their own priorities in the new year. So at this point, why should any of us be surprised, though, that McConnell just announced that, quote, there's widespread agreement that would be better off with an omnibus than a temporary spending bill or a CR? Widespread agreement among whom? Certainly not the Republican Party. And tonight, we learned via John Thune, who's leading these efforts for the GOP, that the appropriators are trading, now negotiating, and Shelby, Senator Richard Shelby of Alabama, and Patrick Leahy of Vermont are engaged. And we'll see if they can strike a deal. Okay, think about this for a moment. GOP interests are being represented, nothing personal against him, but by Richard Shelby, who is an old establishment guy. He's 88 years old, and whose political career is over. That is a joke. Now, well, look, Mitch McConnell prefers these obscene, gargantuan spending bills because it makes his job easier. And it means, in the end, he won't have to deal with conservatives quite as much in the new year, certainly not in the House. Now, more from this Politico piece today. McConnell also knows that if he reaches a deal this month, then outgoing Speaker Nancy Pelosi can be trusted to push it through the House. Can the same be said about McCarthy in January? As one GOP senator told Politico this week, nobody wants to hand Kevin McCarthy a grenade with a pin already pulled. Wow. He trusts Pelosi more than McCarthy, McConnell. Well, Washington's swamp really just is a trough with more and more pigs feeding at it every day. Chief among them are our nation's defense contractors, who get, basically an ice cream sundae with a cherry on top from Mitch. McConnell has a price for his cooperation. He's insisting that defense spending receive a bigger boost than non-defense spending. Okay, you cannot make up how irresponsible this is. Now, this isn't the 1980s when our military leaders were reliably conservative, unfailingly traditional. Now our military leadership hates us all. McConnell should be demanding transparency and accountability for the nearly $20 billion worth of military hardware and humanitarian assistance we've already sent to Ukraine. He should be demanding an audit of Pentagon spending there, not rubber stamping what the White House wants in this new package, which, by the way, ends up all totaled, when you total it all up with a new supplemental, we'll have spent $100 billion in the year 2022 to 2023. And we have an open border. We have tens of thousands of our own vets living in gutters across America, and we don't help them. But $100 billion to Ukraine, this is just disgusting. This entire episode reminds me of the infrastructure fiasco where 19 GOP senators decided to sign on with the Democrats, giving Biden that vaunted bipartisan victory he talked about during the midterms. So when they agreed to this, McConnell et al. Squandered all their leverage that they could have used to stop the climate change bill, which we all remember passed with 0 Republican votes in August. I mean, my God, they claim like everything on the Hill is a negotiation. Well, by giving the Dems this win, McConnell ends up avoiding having to work with the Freedom Caucus when we're talking about this military spending and this huge omnibus bill in the fall. But my friends, the Pentagon's budget is not sacrosanct, and our woke military needs to be subject to more oversight, period. Now, consider this contrast, the run-and-hide leadership style of Mitch McConnell with the take-no-prisoners approach of someone like Ron DeSantis. Now, he didn't choose to sell out in order to keep his seat at the elite's table. He fought Disney, and he won.
These are parents' rights, important policies in our state that are very popular, and so they brought this on themselves. Yeah. All we did was stand up for what's right, and yes, they're a big, powerful company, but you know what? We stand up for our folks, and I don't care what a Burbank-based California company says about our laws.
You got it. But here in D.C., Republicans don't dare question the Pentagon. Keep the government contracts coming, kids. Never can stop. Now, over the next year, I bet we're going to see more unnamed sources talking to the establishment media, complaining that they can't keep the party unified. They're probably going to be still blaming Trump for that. But if Mitch McConnell's team wants to blame someone, their boss is going to need to look in the mirror. Whether it's his snarky comments about our Senate candidates or his willingness to cram through this out-of-control, pork-filled omnibus. McConnell just comes off as totally disinterested in the people who actually win his party elections. Now, the angle has praised McConnell repeatedly as a formidable fighter for judicial confirmations. But he uses his talents too often to help liberals just spend more money. Of course, being a member of the establishment means never having to say you're sorry. The only person who ever tried to explain this strategy of working with the Democrats on huge spending bills was Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana. And you're going to recall that the angle on that issue obliterated him. You guys got played on this. You had to vote first or agree first. They still haven't shown the text of their legislation, have they, sir? Make them show their politics. You made it easy for them. Can McConnell or Cassidy point to one House or Senate seat that the Republicans won because of their massive infrastructure bill? Now, there's going to come a time, probably in the next few years, when Mitch McConnell is going to need conservative support for his priorities and his candidates. And that support won't be there because of this cynical, selfish bargain like the one he's making on this omnibus. In the end, ramming through reckless spending and stabbing conservatives in the back is neither smart politics nor good for America. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.